Sorry, Deputy Jerry. Sorry, hold on. I've called the next speaker. Would you resume your seat? No, resume your seat. Deputy Adams is called. Would you resume your seat, please? Sorry, hold on a minute. There's no cross-conversation here. You resume your seat. Deputy Adams is being called. Thank you. Okay, sorry. Deputy Adams, without interruption, please. Thank you. Deputy Adams, without interruption, please. Thank you.
Taoiseach, yesterday the Taoiseach told the Dáil that a family of 4 adults would pay a water tax bill of €200. Now that statement was later very quickly and flatly rejected by her own spokesperson and by your spokesperson. And there were then media briefings from the government that the Taoiseach was expressing a personal view. And you have repeated that here today. So here we have the Taoiseach repudiating the Taoiseach. And the question is, for most people out there, which one of you is Tweedledum and which one of you is Tweedledee? Is the Taoiseach part of the government? Yesterday, you majored on the need for clarity. And here we have, last Christmas, rushing this legislation through the Dáil. Here we are today, facing Christmas again, and you still won't tell citizens how much you're going to charge them for water. So could you set out now, just very precisely what the government position is? You actually said, in contradiction of your earlier remarks, that you agree with the Taoiseach. So does that mean that what the Taoiseach said in terms of the figures she quoted, of less than €200, does that mean that she's correct? Could you clarify that? And yesterday you refused to commit to scrapping water charges. Now, way back in the day, remember, you said you'd be different from Fianna Fáil. You said that Paddy likes to know. So would you, Taoiseach, because struggling families...
Sorry, would you please?
So struggling families do have the right to know. Remember you said, as I said a moment ago, Paddy likes to know. Well, tell Paddy and Patricia now, was the Taoiseach right in the figure she put forward yesterday? And if she wasn't right, will you tell the Dáil how much you're going to charge for water?
Thank you. Taoiseach.
Yeah, I heard you waffling on this morning to the nation, saying that you support those who do pay, you support those who don't pay, and you support those who can't pay. And then you said that everybody should go to hell insofar as Europe is concerned. So now we know where you stand, everywhere and nowhere.
All over the place. All over the place.
I think you don't know what you want, and you're going to keep looking for it until you find it. And actually, when the interviewer asked you the question, if you were sitting in this chair, you ran an Irish mile from that very quickly. That you have no intention of being over here, other than, as I say, standing on all platforms for everything, against everything, with no commitment at all. Now, I'll answer your question for you. What I said to Deputy Martin was that I support the principle espoused by the Taoiseach yesterday, that the contributions for domestic water should be as fair and as affordable as possible. And I can confirm to you that the government have not made a decision in regard to the final level of contributions to be and changes to the structure.
Stay quiet, will you please?
You are aware.
Stay quiet.
You are aware, Deputy Adams. You are aware, Deputy Adams.
You can't say quiet, leave the chamber.
You are aware, Deputy Adams, there's a very strong programme of metering at the moment. You are aware that the current structure means that while meters have been running since the 1st of October, that bills will not be sent out until the end of January at in the current structure, and that the capping arrangement that applies will continue for a further 9 months, which means that if people who have a meter actually use less water than the cap, they pay the lower amount. which is not only an incentive to register and to have a meter installed, but have the capacity to beat the cap, as it were. Now, government have looked and listened to the very many people who have voiced their concerns and their views on this. And as you say, Deputy Adams, they range from those who can pay, and you're on the industrial wage, and you're going to pay for your holiday home in Donegal, and good luck to you, and enjoy your meal in New York tomorrow night when you go over there, to those who won't pay, to those who can't pay. So government have listened to all of this, Deputy Adams, and as I say, in 2 weeks' time, we'll make a decision that will be very clear, hopefully in line with the principle that the Taoiseach espoused yesterday of having the domestic water contributions as fair and as affordable as possible for everybody.
Thank you.
I'd point out to you again.
Thank you.
I'd point out to you again, Deputy Adams. That the market corporation test for an entity like this is a test that it be sufficiently resourced to stand independently of the government. And that's why it's necessary to have Irish Water set up that can borrow independently, that can invest in a programme of fixing the inadequate and inferior infrastructure that we have around the country. You will have noted the comments from the Environmental Protection Agency in regard to the numbers of treatment plants that are not up to standard, in regard to the national standard that will be employed by Irish Water, and in respect of the very major capital programme of over $1 billion that they've laid out for each year. We need an investment, Deputy, of around $10 billion to fix something that we have not been able to fix for years, and that will not be able to be fixed unless you have an entity like Irish Water. So 2 weeks, we'll be very clear. We'll have your certainty and your debate here, and you can make all of the comments that you wish to make on that occasion.
Deputy Adams.
Margaret, just incidentally, the Labour Party committed to opposing any effort to bring in water charges, but that's beside the point. You said, Taoiseach, you haven't made a decision.
Sorry, but just stay quiet, please. You're not impressing anybody. Shouting. We've too many comedians at the moment. Would you leave it to the Deputy Adams to make his statement? Thank you.
So you said you haven't made a decision. 3.5 years into your government, almost a year after you introduced this legislation, you still won't tell people what you're going to charge them. Now, Taoiseach, this government of yours is totally dysfunctional. The minister who introduced the water charges legislation says it has objectively failed. He described Uisce Éireann Irish Water as arrogant, uncaring, and a cosseted quango with a bonus culture. Your minister, one of your Teachta Dála, Owen Murphy, today accuses you of having manipulated and abused the Dáil in the way you ran through legislation establishing Irish Water. He says its credibility lies in tatters. And meanwhile, Minister Kelly has threatened that the revenue will be used to chase those who cannot pay the water tax. He's also demanding that citizens hand over their PPS numbers to Irish Water. And then we read, and have you authorised this, or has the Taoiseach authorised Irish Water to contact every local authority seeking the names and addresses of their council tenants? But Taoiseach, is this what you mean when you say you listened to the concerns of citizens who took to the streets in every county of this state last Saturday?
Thank you.
Is this what you mean when you said yesterday,
please, you
said you would act on their calls? So the game's up. Will you take the opportunity? Once again, you won't tell us how much you're going to charge. You refuse to do that. Will you not now even belatedly agree that the only way forward is to scrap water charges?
Thank you.
No, I don't agree with that at all. The government have made a number of decisions in regard to giving the regulator directions here, that the average meter charge would be $2.40, that there would be 30,000 litres allocated per household and 21,000 litres allocated per child. The situation, insofar as problems being raised by people here, are particularly in regard to those who have difficulties in meeting an assessed charge, and where there are households with more than 3 adults, more than 2 adults. Clearly, that's an issue that the government will have to address. I've given the percentages of the houses that. Where that's involved, actually, where you have numbers over 3 adults living in a household, and they do need to be dealt with. So that's really households with 3 or more adults comprise 13%. Households with 4 adults or more are 6%, and 5 adults are 2%. And there is an issue there that needs to be addressed. So, arising from the confusion, the misinformation. That has been around about this for some time now.
Sorry, would you mind, please?
Government will consider all of these issues, ranging from the issues concerning Irish water.
Stop shouting to the backbenches. Thanks very much.
To the people who have aired their difficulties and who've expressed their concerns, but also, Deputy Adams, to the fundamental fact that we live in a country that has an inadequate water system. We live in a country that has inferior treatment works. We live in a country where we're paying $1.2 billion for treated water at the moment, and 40% of it leaks away into the ground. We live in a country where people do pay their taxes generally, and taxes are running ahead of projections, as you're aware, in the fastest growing economy in Europe. But we're not in a position to face the future where we can provide an infrastructure for the hundreds of thousands of people around the country who are living with boiled water notices, raw sewage going into rivers and bays of the sea, leaks, and so many schemes that are not up to standard. We've got to fix that, Deputy Adams, and you know this. So the issues that have been raised that are a concern to people and of anxiety are perfectly legitimate. And in line with the principle espoused here of having contributions that are fair and are affordable, the government will make its decision in 2 weeks on that.
Thank you,
I pointed out the projects
time,
where these things are very necessary, Deputy.
Deputy Wallace.